Brandon Frame, founder of TheBlackManCan. So excited to be here for our panel, Bronx to the World. Thank you to Live from the Bronx for allowing us to curate this panel. What I did when I had the opportunity, I said I had to go find the dopest, the coolest brothers from the Bronx who have taken their brand. It has Bronx origins, but they've taken it to the world, right? The world knows these individuals, follows them, and is really into all the work that they're doing. So I'm gonna bring them to the stage, and then we're gonna get into this really powerful conversation. How does that sound? Can I get a year? All right, well first I wanna bring Dr. Christopher Emdin to the stage, professor, scientist, New York Times bestselling author, founder of Hip Hop Ed, Dr. Christopher Emdin. Next, I want to bring my brother. He's traveled all around the world with me. He's been to the Bahamas with me. We went to Los Angeles. We've been all over. Fashion designer, educator, co-founder of Modern Day Man, CEO of Garçon Couture, Ilbert J. Sanchez. And next, this brother, he's bringing the diaspora back home to the motherland, right? Founder of AfroFuture, founder of Culture Management Group, Abdullah. Everybody should get a mic. All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining me. They responded to the call. I reached out and they said, I got you, we'll be there. It's for the Bronx, it's about black men and boys and men of color, so they're here, so I really appreciate it. So this is also gonna be an episode of The Men's Den. It's our video podcast from TheBlackManCan. So this episode will be up on YouTube, clips on Instagram, so I'm really excited about that. And how we start off every conversation in The Men's Den is a lot of times when we get together as brothers, we really humble, you know, like, yo, it's good to see you, bro. You know, I'm just trying to be like you. But in the men's den, I like to get a little braggadocio, get a little big Bronx energy. So what I want you to do to introduce yourself is tell us where you're from in the Bronx, and then tell us why you him. Why you one of them ones? Why you one of them real rights? All right? So first, again, tell us where you're from in the Bronx, and then tell us why you him. Abdul, you can start us off.
Hello, everybody. Does this work? Oh, there we go. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. Shout out to TheBlackManCan, my brother Brandon Frame, and the rest of the panelists. I'm from the Bronx. I'm from Burnside Avenue, Cedric Avenue. Grew up here, went to Walter High School. There's a lot of reasons why I'm him. But I'd say I've left the legacy of bringing the most amount of black people back to Africa. And I'm pretty happy about that. Over 1 million people have come back to Africa because of some of the work that we've done.
Well, let's pop it up for that. I love it. Ilbert.
Good afternoon, everyone. Frame, thank you for having us on the panel. Shout out to my panelists here. We haven't been on a panel with Dula for a long time, so it's a pleasure to be here next to this guy because he's never in America. I'm here because first I'm from 171 Cortona Park, Boston Road. I went to school, Pier 63, Pier 25. I was born in Honduras, but I came to the Bronx at the age of 6. So I've been to, all of my schooling was in the South Bronx. I went to Samuel Gompers High School, which is literally 10 minutes from here. So everything I've done has been in the Bronx. And then from there, I've been all over the world. So I'm him because from where I'm from is a low percentage of people that's seen the things that I've seen and endured the things that I've endured, and also being able to bring people to my showroom. I have a showroom for my clothing, which is suiting for men and women. It's called Garçon Couture, the name of the company, and we have a showroom. I intentionally put the showroom here in the Bronx. We're in Walnut Loft, right next to Bronx Brewery, and I've done over 800 weddings, literally all over the world. Like, we've been to Santorini, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Puerto Rico, Trinidad, Dominican Republic, scratch Trinidad. We haven't been here yet, but I will soon for a wedding. So we've done weddings for literally everybody all over the world, and they come to the Bronx to get fitted by me, to have them get dressed for the biggest day of their life.
Outstanding.
Mike, don't. Yeah, so first, where I'm from in the Bronx, I grew up 167th and Walton, 1240 Walton Avenue to be exact. And then my family moved up to Kingsbridge when I was about 16. I still live on Kingsbridge most of the time. Why am I him? Because I'm just dope. And I'm glad you opened up with that question, because I think oftentimes for men of color, we've been just taught to be quote unquote humble, as if humility is a thing that is a gift. But if a world tries to humble you, then you have to be intentionally upfront about who you are. So anyway, bachelor's degree, triple majored, physical anthropology, biology, and chemistry, master's in natural sciences and education administration, PhD with a specialization in math, science, and technology, a focus on education. I worked for the U.S. Department of State, been to Portugal, Chile, Colombia, STEM ambassador for the U.S. Department of Energy, currently a full tenured professor at Columbia University. And an endowed chair, which is more rare than just a full professorship. So I'm currently the Maxine Green Chair for Distinguished Contributions to Education. There are about 7 named chairs at my college. I'll hold one of the 7. Founded Science Genius, co-founded Hip Hop Ed. And what really makes me him is that I'm from the Bronx. You know what I mean? Like I still be an X every day. I'm good in the hood in the Ivy League Tower, and I think that's what makes me different. I like to say to folks, New York Times bestselling author twice. You know what I mean? Like, and most importantly, from the Bronx.
Yeah. Let's give it up for all of them. Can we give you a round of applause? I told you I'll put together a dynamic panel, some of the best brothers from the Bronx. And so to start, we'll start, then we'll come back this way, starting on the end. How has the Bronx influenced your entrepreneurial journey with everything that you're doing and the journey that you've been on?
Well, I think the Bronx is a metaphor for overcoming when everything in your circumstance says that you're not supposed to be. Like, the Bronx created the one cultural artifact that's been transferred across the globe, which is hip hop. If it was not for the Bronx, there would be no hip hop. Hip hop has become a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that folks still profit off of. And for me, like, the Bronx for me is just a metaphor. It says if you try to burn it down, it will still create something magical that influences the world. If you try to say it's less than, it will reinvent itself and then become the hottest real estate agency in the entire world. If you say that it's less than, it will construct its own language and linguistic practices. If you say somebody's worth nothing anywhere in the globe, they come here and here, like, construct something in their identity, and then they go out and shape the world. So for me, like, the Bronx as an entity is a metaphor for being told that you can't be and then becoming. And so my entire life, whenever somebody tries to tell me I can't be, or they tell me I'm less than, or whatever else it is, I remind myself that I am an exemplar of that metaphor. That if you're from the Bronx, you can be broken and still find success, but the Bronx keeps doing it, so I can too.
Come on, give it up for the Bronx. You get a year for that? Yeah. Ilbert. How's the Bronx influenced your entrepreneurial journey?
How has the Bronx influenced my entrepreneurial journey? So, first, my culture is Garifuna. We're the Arawak Indian and Afro-Caribbeans of pretty much of Central America. Mm-hmm. So you'll see the Garifuna people in Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Belize. So we have over 2 million Garifuna people here in New York. A lot of us are in the Bronx. So for me, what I seen when I arrived to the Bronx was the crack epidemic. I went to, my first school was PH25, right on Jackson Avenue and Southern Boulevard. And I remember being in the 4th grade, 3rd grade, and seeing like the little crack pipes on the floor.
I remember.
So I didn't know what that was. For me, I was just trying to get connected with the American culture. And I always seen the people around me as I grew up, every stage, every level, they were just struggling. There was always a struggle, whether it be at home, whether it be in school, with family, there was always struggles. And I used to see that firsthand. So I always felt the need to become a leader and just keep showing people that you can get out of this, you can get out of any type of trauma, any type of crisis, and do things that can actually influence your community. Mm-hmm. So me, I used to always be the leader, whether it be basketball, whether it be some type of committee in school. I've always just felt the need to lead so that the people from the Bronx can see me. Mm. So I took that and I expanded that 10 times with Garson Couture, with the Modern Day Man. And my influence has been the people around me, just seeing like my brothers just doing it. And for me, I was like, I can't refuse to do anything mediocre. So I'm intentional about having a show in the Bronx because I want the people from the Bronx to see that you can do it also.
Fact.
And when I'm traveling, I post photos of me somewhere in the world, and it's like, you can get out the Bronx as well. You can always come back and give back, but don't forget where you come from, but also understand that the Bronx is much bigger. So when we do Modern Day Man, which is my program about giving back to the youth and having young men understand how to be gentlemen, a lot of the schools that I'm in are in the Bronx, and I'm telling them, listen, the world is much bigger than the Bronx. Don't forget about the Bronx, but understand there's much more things than the Bronx.
Powerful. I love that, and I love the program. Y'all make sure y'all check that out. We're gonna make sure we get that information out to everybody. Abdul.
Yeah, I mean, home is where the heart is. I mean, no matter how far I went in the world, whenever I came back to the Bronx, it was little things like being able to hail down a taxi that made me feel happy to be home. But the Bronx obviously is one of the biggest populations of Ghanaian communities. My family is from Accra, Ghana, and my father had a business in the Bronx for 36 years. And I've seen how we connected to the community, whether it was the community centers, whether it was the guy in my neighborhood, the people in my neighborhood. I always wanted to be able to figure out how to give back or how to educate people. And the Bronx gave me the opportunity. It taught me a lot about hustling. It taught me a lot about school. I used to shop on Fordham Road. I played 3 Monte on Fordham Road. So all of my experiences as a child that made me want to be a better man came from being in the Bronx. I watched my parents come in as immigrants and become people, business people. And that motivated me to want to become a businessman and to become a businessman in order to be able to come back and give back. So it's been great to kind of have that as a measuring stick for however far I go. There's always a home here welcoming me back in the Bronx.
Powerful. And so thinking about your entrepreneurial journeys, I want to get a little bit for everyone here, like what was the spark or the catalyst to your entrepreneurial journey or the passion that you have? And so Abdul, I want to start with you and thinking about, like, I've been to AfroFuture 2 years in a row. If you haven't gone, you need to book the ticket now and go. Dutty December, it's a vibe. But I've gone back, and it was a really powerful experience. But we met, and you was doing the Be Great Foundation, right? That's how we met, 2013. Yeah. And then, but when I was at AfroFuture, I was with Brown, and he was like, when we went there, you see the setup, and he was like, man, he used to talk about this at Syracuse, right? So tell us a little about the catalyst to being like, we want to connect the diaspora back home and building culture management group, AfroFuture. Tell us about that ignited the spark to do that.
Yeah, the doc and I were just having a conversation about 2 minutes ago about communities. If you live in the Bronx, you grow up next to Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, people from all over the world, but we don't know that much about each other. You may know a little bit about the music when you go into the supermarket, into the grocery stores. You may know a little bit about the food. You may know a little bit about, where the people come from. And as a kid growing up in the Bronx, I was always the African kid. But when I went home, I was an American to my parents, right? So it's very confusing as a child growing up in this society to identify yourself or to know who you are. And then, because of the circumstances of our socioeconomic statuses in the Bronx, when it comes to health or opportunities or jobs, we kind of pitted against each other. So we say hateful things, we figure out how to not be together. And what I wanted to do when I was thinking about my business was how to educate more people about the African experience, right? So people tend to say, you're African, but they don't realize there are 54 countries in Africa. And within the countries, those people are so different and so dynamic. So a lot about my business was figuring out how to educate people through storytelling about Africa in a way that they can receive it and understand. And I knew entertainment was one sure way that, that people will understand it. It's beautiful now that, right before I came, these guys, we went to school together, Luther, and we went to school together. They were playing Ashake in here, in the Bronx. I grew up in the Bronx. I remember the first time I heard African music on the radio, Power 105.1, right? I know what that means, to kind of have that experience now. And all of that has to do with a lot of the work that we've been doing, demystifying Africa or celebrating Africa in a way that's very different. And we chose our festival to celebrate things that bring people together. So food, art, fashion, music, all of the things that will start a conversation that will allow people to be a little bit less, uninformed and a lot more informed in a way that they can receive it. So, we started inviting people back to the continent around 2015. And 2 years later, we set up our first festival. and we've been cooking ever since. You know, we went from 5,000 people to 41,000 people. The business evolved from just a festival to now a full-service agency where we do digital content storytelling, and we also do in-person creative activation. And what that means is really just kind of adding the sauce to somebody's event, right? So the NBA is opening up a basketball experience around the continent. They want somebody to bring in the culture. My business brings in that culture. Doing those things allow people to experience the continent in a different way. And you've come to Ghana, but many people like you have come to Ghana, but that has created an opportunity for them to visit Nigeria or Senegal or South Africa or Rwanda or Kenya. And it's allowing us to open up our minds about what is possible beyond the borders of the Bronx, beyond the borders of New York City, and beyond the borders of the US.
Powerful, I love that. We clap it up, yes. Ilbert, for you, the spark, right? Thinking about, like, I got 5 Garçon Couture suits, you know, big supporter of modern day man. Tell us a little bit about what ignited the spark for you and in your business and what you do.
So my passion is art, fashion, and the youth. I remember growing up, and there weren't that many black men that I could look up to in my neighborhood. A lot of them got locked up, a lot of my friends got killed growing up, so I wanted to be able to create a program like the Modern Day Man where I can teach young kids about social emotional learning. I can teach them about the 4 agreements. I can teach them about just how to be gentlemen so that when you grow up, you can show up present for your partner. And when we're in these classrooms, I'm actually helping them get grounded, actually helping them feel the emotions. Because when I was young, it was hard for me to actually release my emotions because no one taught me how to do that. So we're teaching them this now. I don't remember having career day in school. So what we're doing is we're taking them to the NBA headquarters, we're taking them to Nike headquarters, we're taking them to BuzzFeed, Bloomberg, and they're actually meeting people that look like them at high levels. I wasn't aware of none of that when I was younger. So my passion is remembering where I was when I got here at 6, and although it was a better circumstances, it was pretty rough. So I want to be able to be gentle to the young boys and give them actually the opportunity to think big and to think colossal and to not think mediocre. Because what happens is when you travel the world, a lot of people have negative things to say about the Bronx. Even other boroughs, they always say, oh, the Bronx this, the Bronx that. But I refuse to continue that narrative. I'm switching that narrative to be able to understand that there's gems that come out the Bronx. So I'm providing that access to kids at 3rd grade levels, 4th, 5th, 6th. So that's why I'm so passionate about educating the youth, educating them, letting them know how powerful we can be, and we have all the tools necessary here in this borough to be able to accomplish these things that we weren't aware of at our age.
Facts.
You know, only trips we were going to was the Bronx Zoo. It was the Bronx Zoo and something like the National Science Museum. So that wasn't enough for us, Statue of Liberty. So for me, I'm being intentional about providing this type of access to our young men here in these Bronx schools.
Powerful, and creating access. I've seen those videos and going to the different venues and businesses, and it's powerful. You see their eyes just light up going to the NBA headquarters, right? So that's why. Dr. Emdin, we met in 2010 on Twitter, right? Before it was X, it was Twitter. And I've admired you for, even though we're brothers, I've admired you just the work. Now I'm a doctor. You wrote my recommendation for graduate for my doctoral program. You know, so tell us a little about your journey. Like you redefined, like when people think of a scientist, when they think of a professor, that's not the image. You are not the image that comes up, but you've redefined that for so many people, right? And even thinking about your book for white folks who teach in the hood and the rest of y'all too, Ratchetdemic, right? Tell us about this journey and the catalyst for you to be into the hip hop and education and everything that you've done.
It's a dope question. Like, so if someone is to say what the primary catalyst is, I will admit in saying that for a lot of times in my schooling experiences, I didn't know, right? So my aspirations growing up were to be a rapper. Like that was when I was in middle school, high school, that's what I wanted to do. And I never saw that there were other possibilities beyond that. And I literally stumbled into recognizing my academic intelligence by accident. Like literally I was in a class with this woman when I was an undergrad, and she was like, why don't you come research in my lab? And I was like, I don't want to go to your lab. Like, who wants to hang out in the lab? And she was like, if you come to my lab, you'll get extra credit. So I actually went to the lab because I already knew in my head I was going to fail, And like I knew I was gonna need extra credit before. So my motivation for even going to do science in the lab was feeling as if I didn't have the intelligence. And so when I got there and actually started doing science, like literally engaging, I started realizing like, yo, actual science is very different than school science. Like I started understanding that in K through 12, they teach you how to memorize, but when you go into higher education and actually doing stuff, they ask you to think, reflect, apply, connect, work in groups. And I'm like, yo, I never got this when I was in school. And so when I started actually doing this stuff and realizing the gifts that I had, I started rediscovering that I was intelligent. And I was like, yo, if an album drops on Tuesday, I know all the lyrics by Thursday. And no one told me in school that I was intelligent, but I had an amazing memory because I used to write rhymes and memorize rhymes when I had to battle. So now when I was applying it in other settings, I started realizing that there's inherent genius just by function of being hip hop and being from the hood. Like when you talk about like the Bronx and people's perceptions of the Bronx, what people don't recognize is any phenomenon that is framed as inherently negative also means that it is developing skills in you that can be applied positively. So in any instance, somebody who has poverty is just automatically more creative. When you go across the world, you go to Ghana, you go to South Africa, kids who have no bread, they make the most cool toys because all they have is like the little things they have in front of them. So you look at them like, oh, those poor kids, but in reality, their poverty is actually activating their creativity. Well, Bronx is the same way. Like if you ain't got no heat in your apartment and your mom's has to find a way to close a certain window and heat up the oven, that's a scientist because she's figuring out ways to use the circumstances to allow her family to be comfortable. If you're on a ball court and you can't get in because the older kids are playing, there are ways that you elevate your voice so that they be like, yo, let's shorty get some run. Well, that's the same thing you use in an academic setting when you want to get attention from a job seeker. So all of a sudden I started realizing like, I actually have these skills just by virtue of my existence. And once I found out, it was a rizzy, like, cause I started realizing then that everybody that they told me was intelligent, all they had was degrees, but they didn't have my experiences. So on paper, you could be a PhD and I'm a PhD, but I'm a PhD who understands what poverty looks like. I'm a PhD who understands how coming from the hood looks like. I'm a PhD who knew how to enter into a rap battle. So like, I'm like you on paper, but you can never be like me in experience. And when I realized that my experience is what gives me a superpower, the whole world opened up. And so I wrote a book, the title of the book is Ratchetemic. And the premise behind Ratchetemic, you should all cop that. The premise behind Ratchetemic is that you could actually equally be as ratchet as you are academic at the same time. And our babies oftentimes think I gotta choose, like, am I gonna be like cool or am I gonna be the nerdy kid? And that's a lie that white supremacy taught us. Because in reality, you could actually be both. And so the motivation for me is the recognition that I could be both. I could be everything I want to be all at the same time. Like that whole phrase like jack of all trades and master of none, we stopped that prematurely because all of that means that you're better than the master of none. So if I can do all them things, then why not, right? That's the first motivation. The second motivation, which I think we don't like to talk about when we find some modicum of success, is faith. It's faith. Like we can't be from this borough and where we come from without recognizing that you gotta believe in a divine power that's beyond the physical. And we could have a whole Bronx summit, we could talk about whatever it is. In the absence of spirituality, you're leaving yourself to be a victim of a world that does not see faith. If there's no God in it, there's nothing in it. And we can't talk about academic success or intellectual success without talking about the fact that for black folks in particular, we are spiritual people. And when we give up our spiritual roots in pursuit of the imaginations of white supremacists, we become their victims rather than the conquerors. And so for me, like, I believe that God got me. When I write about teaching and learning, I don't just write about education. I talk about Pentecostal pedagogy. They're like, what do you mean by Pentecostal pedagogy? I'm saying if you want to connect to young people and you want them to be greater than they are, do you pray over them? Do you pray over yourself? Do you have faith? Do you believe that no matter what happens in circumstances, that greater is for you? Do you believe in an afterlife? And as an intellectual and an academic and a scientist, I've been trained to erase faith from my profession. But I've come to the point that when I embed my whole existence in my faith, right? When like everything I do is recognize that I do it and not just for me, but for the person who brought me on this planet and brought me out of the dregs to where I stand today. right? Like my sins are washed away by virtue of who I believe in. And because of that, that makes me doper than anybody else. Not because I'm special, but because I'm God's child. That's the secret sauce. And we gotta teach our babies to find faith.
God is good all the time. Oh, we in the right place. All right, absolutely. I love that. Ooh, I got to sit in that one. That was heavy, and it was real, and it was heavy. I got lots of questions here. One, I want to get into just some challenges, right? As entrepreneurs, and we have lots of entrepreneurs in the room who want to learn from you. What is a challenge that you've had and how you've overcome it in your business that you can share?
Man, anybody that's starting a business. Okay, so I'd say one of the biggest challenges I identified was identifying that the buck stopped with me. Right? And I think that it's a realization that every business owner comes to find out that you have to find the solution. And that is different if you've had a job before where like there's a SOP somewhere, there is a standard working procedure somewhere, there is somebody that has done it before. But I've faced so many challenges in trying to navigate getting people from all over the world to come to the continent that it's been crazy. I've had to be a politician. I've had to be a lawyer. I've had to be a project manager. I've had to be, whatever it has to be in order to be able to make my business successful, right? So I've been sued by the biggest lawyers in the world. I have, navigated, a pandemic to keep my business alive. I have identified so many reasons why, what will allow me to become a leader. And I think that when it comes to it, if I had to choose one that I'm dealing with right now, I'm dealing with global warming, right? So right now, I've announced that my show is happening on the beach. And now I'm dealing with the sea taking over my beach. So navigating that in order to be able to kind of make this a success and promise the people that are coming, the 8,000 people that are coming to have a show, I need to navigate that and be able to work on that in order to bring that to life. And that's a small challenge amongst all the challenges I've faced in the past 10 years of business. But one of the things that he said that I recognize with is understanding faith and understanding that no matter how hard it feels in the moment, once you get through it, it's just another thing that you've accomplished, right? It's another thing that you've been able to kind of go through. And it almost kind of makes you feel stronger, right? And so any challenge I face from year 1 to year 8, I feel like every year I feel a little bit more energized and a little bit stronger. So those problems feel like baby problems. So to somebody else, it may feel like a big deal, but to me, I've navigated and I've overcome it. So I know what it feels like to stand in that moment and be able to get through it.
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. Ilbert, or Dr. Emdin, you had the mic. You can just switch. It doesn't matter who goes.
Just to reiterate what the king said, because he was so spot on. And like, if I were to drill that down, it's like nimbleness. Like nimbleness is the capacity to be able to dance in the middle of a storm. And people oftentimes aren't nimble. Like the first time they get to a struggle, it feels like the end of the world. They're like, I probably can't do it. And you have to be able to be resilient and you have to be able to be nimble. So like, if the show can't be on the beach, like what's the next closest thing? You can't spend time focusing on what you can't control. So if you can't control it, you gotta go to the plan B. And so for me, it's like nimbleness and dexterity. And I think another thing also is just like imagination. We don't think about that enough. Like we do, as a society, folks who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, the system is constructed in a way to make you only think about the next dollar. So it's like, I gotta go from this job to the next job to the next job. And that happens on purpose because when you're working for somebody else all the time, you don't have the time to take out the dream. And so for me, I work with a number of institutions. I don't work for any institution. I work with institutions because I'm an institution. Like my relationship with institutions are always that way. Like Dr. Emdin, you work for Columbia University. Nope. They have the honor to work with me. I'm an institution as well. And I think, so it's like that part. And then the next part is like, in the middle of whatever, I always take time out to dream. So if I'm busy, I'm working, I'm like, you know what, that day, take everything off the calendar. I'm not doing anything. There's a job, they're gonna pay you $15K to come speak. I've made a promise to myself and the divine that I'm doing nothing on that day. And what am I doing on that day? Dreaming. What's the next book gonna be? What's the next program gonna be? And if you don't take the time out to dream, you end up following somebody else's dream or working for them. So, I would say be nimble, dance in the middle of the storm, and give yourself the time to dream about the next thing. Because the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next one.
Yep. 100%. The top of one mountain is the bottom of the next one. Woo! I love it. Ilbert.
For me, it's give yourself grace. You're gonna face a lot of challenges. Literally, it will come to like every day, whether it be a finance challenge, whether it be your business partner, partnerships, location, legal, it'll be issues literally every day. You gotta give yourself grace. I've been in the fashion industry for about 15 plus years, and the things that I've seen, the things that happen today, if it would have happened to me day one, I would have been panicking. But now I take it with grace. And it's like, okay, we've been here before. For example, during the pandemic, January of 2020, nobody knew things were about to get shaky. That was supposed to be our biggest year at Garza Couture. Right? So my office at the time was in Grand Central, and the world started to shut down in like March, April. And I remember a lot of my clients that were getting married in February and March were like, yeah, we want to get married in 2020 because it's such a big year. Everybody thought 2020 was going to be such a big year. It was a big year, but it wasn't what we thought it was.
Right.
We had to shut down our office for 6 months, and our office was in Grand Central. So we had to still pay for that. We still had to pay that rent in Grand Central. So we had to be able to navigate and find different ways to bring in revenues from home. So I started designing Garza Couture masks. I started doing like video consultations for clients just because they wanted to get clothes. I'm like, how can we do it? Let's start measuring them digitally through Google Meet or Zoom. Just finding out these different ways to actually make money and be creative. Understanding that you also got to be able to teach yourself, keep learning. I love to learn. I love to I'll be watching random YouTube videos of like just how to improve marketing, how to improve branding. I took a Goldman Sachs program. It's called the Goldman Sachs 10K SB program. SB stands for small business, and what happens is they help you 10x your company. Goldman Sachs 10K SB. If you have a company, I would say try to apply to get into that program because that helped my company grow so much. I was able to actually add operations to my company. I was able to add customer service people, an operations person, just all types of details that I didn't know that I wasn't privy to. And once I took that program, I was able to actually help my clients just be heard more. I was able to design much more and being able to actually structure my company much better, whether it be for taxes, whether it be for just visualizations of marketing and branding. So I would say teach yourself, keep teaching, keep learning. There's always going to be things that you have to learn. You should always continue learning and give yourself grace and put God first.
Facts.
Powerful remarks there. I'm just going to switch it just a little bit, just have a little bit of fun because we have the Bronx Summit. And the question I have for everyone to answer is, what I've realized, I moved to the Bronx, I've been here now almost 6.5, 7 years, and I love being from the Bronx. You see, I got my Bronx.
You rapping. I see you.
I love saying that I'm from the Bronx, but I learned, maybe within 6 months of living here, you say you live in the Bronx, and then when I realized I was defending the Bronx as a full-time job.
Absolutely.
So I would love to hear each one of you just to share, what's your most iconic defending the Bronx story that you had to put somebody straight because they had something to say about the Bronx. So what's your defending the Bronx story?
I mean, mostly it's Brooklyn people that like to talk a lot of crap. So I always tell them, y'all repping blocks that y'all don't even live on. Your block is gentrified. You don't even live there no more. So, I think that's one of the ones that like normally gets back at the Brooklyn cats when they know they don't even live in their own neighborhood that they repping.
For me I think the Bronx has the most culture in New York City.
Yep.
So what that means is if you go around the corner, you're going to meet somebody from the Bronx. You go uptown, you're gonna meet somebody from the Bronx. There's somebody always from the Bronx. And I live in Brooklyn right now, and there's not that many people that are literally from Brooklyn. And a lot of them probably live like deeper out in Brooklyn. They moved to Atlanta, they moved to Florida, North Carolina. I know that the Bronx has the purest culture. Like what you see is what you get, and it is what it is. It isn't like whitewashed. And I take pride in that.
I mean, look, like, first of all, hip hop. Like, nobody can tell me nothing about the Bronx. So I'll be like, yo, the birthplace of the culture is here, number one. Then I get to just getting in my bag, just to like let folks know stuff. Like, yo, do you know that the park in New York that has the most space and green space is actually Van Cortlandt Park? You know that, did you? Oh, cool. Do you know that the freest golf course across the Northeast that folks that have access to is in Van Cortlandt Park? Oh, you didn't know that? Oh. Do you know that the widest range of socioeconomics anywhere in the world, from the Riverdale to South Bronx, is actually in the Bronx? Oh, you ain't know? Like, sometimes you just gotta drop facts on them. Then beyond the facts, it's also like there's a certain Bronx like swag, right? And we let them Brooklyn cats steal it from us. Like, so, I've been defending the Bronx forever because I went to high school in Brooklyn. I went to Brooklyn Tech. So even in high school, they be like, so you had to take the train all the way, come down here. I'm like, because y'all needed me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, for me, it's just our presence, our authenticity, our resilience. Then also, like, people be forgetting, like, City Island is like y'all be acting like City Island is right there. Like, what you want, votes and shit? We got that too. You want projects? We got that too. Like, we have everything. Like, you have to travel for all those things. We have it all right here. And sorry, last part. And, like, if I ever want to bounce for a different experience, 87 right there. Like, so 87 would take me all the way upstate and back. Like, if I needed the little space, like, I got the best highway, the best park, the best culture, the most swag, the most diversity. What are we even talking about?
What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
So I want to, where are we on time? I want to definitely open it up to the floor to, I think people here, do people have questions? Does anybody here have questions, people? All right, so I'm going to ask a few more questions and then, okay, in the back.
I mean, being an entrepreneur is one of the loneliest journeys you'll take because a lot of people that you think will understand you might not understand you. You have to be able to be resilient in that. And one of the things that my dad tells me a lot is about the importance of righteousness and the importance of self-honesty. For me, what I've learned is the power of saying no. Right, being okay with saying no is something I've struggled with for a long time, and that's just to family and friends, or even in business, just saying no to people as opposed to just trying to figure out how to make it make sense. But outside of that, on a on a personal level, is really just, taking time to be still for a little bit. I travel a lot, I fly a lot of long journeys to different continents. So just being able to, ride my bike sometimes and listen to music is, a big relief for me. Going to the spa sometimes, just to get a massage real quick, that helps, once a quarter, or just going to the nail salon, getting a haircut weekly takes the confidence to a different level, right? So just doing things for yourself intentionally, to just kind of be able to celebrate yourself, because being an entrepreneur, where we're from, where you're not going to get funding as easily, you're not going to know a lot of things that you need to know in order to be a businessman. You're going to learn through experience, right, outside of your mentorship. You just have to be able to learn how to take some time to take care of yourself and be attentive to yourself and your needs as well. So that's one way I do it.
That's real. My brother, you have the Calm app? The Calm, there's an app called Calm. I've been hearing about that. So for me, I meditate. When I'm in an Uber, I usually meditate, or if I'm in the shower, I meditate. I feel like the stillness and just the mindfulness within yourself can actually exude a lot of things that you have in your mind that just releases, right? Meditating has been a huge help for me throughout the years, and I try to be as consistent as possible, but there's no perfection of like how to meditate. Some people be like, damn, this is hard, I can't do it. There's no such thing as you can't do it. Just try to do the best of your ability. being still actually calms your nerves a lot. The technique of breathing in and breathing out, it actually helps you with the stress. You know, it actually releases a lot of just things in you that you need to be able to get released. That's one thing I try to work out as much as possible. You know, check who's in your circle. Influence is important,
That's
right?
the part.
Understanding who are the people that are there that are really there for you. You know, when you give somebody good news, check what their response is. You know, see if they're really here for you, right? Because if you give them bad news, a response may be different. Some people love to hear bad news.
Yep.
So you got to take those people out your circle, family or not. You know, I removed a lot of my family members because of just the negative influence they had on me. You know, growing up, you want to be able to have powerful people that are smarter than you in your circle. You know, if you want to be able to have people to actually want to see you win. You want to have winners in your circle, and if you don't have any winners right now, you got to change your circle. These are things that actually are all connected to your mental health. You know, and like Abdullah said, getting a haircut, you know, being able to actually feel good about yourself. And I write affirmations down. In my program, in Modern Day Man, we have life goals. We have 3 big-term goals, long-term goals, and then 3 short-term goals. Try that as well. These are things that now you have a goal to set, and that helps with like keeping yourself accountable, but also being in a good mental state as you go through this journey of like all these goals that you're pursuing.
Yo, that was brilliant. And I don't want to repeat what you said, but I do the same things for myself. I take a time out, I take time to pray. I don't let nobody who's a lame be in my circle. Like, I know a lot of people, very few people are in my circle. I curate my circle very, very delicately and very intricately. So if you're in a circle, it's because you're affirming me. And then for me, for my mental, I distinguish people into 3 types. I hope this is helpful. I always try to find my elevators. I always try to identify my haters. And I always try to identify the suckers. And I treat each group accordingly. The elevator is a person who is designed to take you higher. And my brother's test was so right. Share good news and bad news with the same person. They'll let you know how they feel about you. And so when I do that, then I'm like, oh, this person's an elevator. Like, if I have bad news, I got you. It's gonna be okay. I share good news. Yo, I'm mad happy for you. I'm like, oh, this person loves me. That's my elevator. So I always make sure I listen to my elevators. First is discernment, then you listen to your elevators. Your elevators are designed to take you higher, and you'll know by that test. So always listen to your elevators. Also, know that your elevators, like if you walk up on an elevator and you get on the elevator is not gonna go anywhere unless some buttons get pushed. So you gotta find elevators that are willing to push your buttons. Not just somebody who's like, yeah, that's good, like challenge me. When you challenge me and I get better and we celebrate together, my mental's better. So listen to your elevators. Second, haters. Anybody that's doing anything worth doing is gonna have somebody that hate on them. And you have to understand how to deal with haters, because they're the ones who affect your mental the most. And a hater is a person who looks like you on paper, but don't have your calling. Like you a chef, they probably a chef too, but they don't like their food like they love your food. You know what I'm saying? And so you gotta find out, like the people who do exactly, like, oh, I can bring people together to go to Africa. He think he's special. How come you haven't done it? Because you're not me, like you're him. Like, let's be clear, like, he's him. So you gotta identify the people who say they could be you, but they not you, and they're gonna start, and you have to know that the hater's first job is to talk about you. And your mental gets affected when the hater talks about you. So you've gotta know how to ignore your haters. And as black men, our ego don't like that. Because the first thing you wanna do is talk to, like, what? He's like, I'm like, yo fam, if you hating on me, I have no time for you. Because my evidence of my work will speak for me. Your food that you make gonna speak for you. Who cares what a other chef does? When somebody eats your food, they're gonna be like, yo, that's mad good. Then all of a sudden, what a hater gotta say is different. You're right here. They right here. If you ever come to talk to them, you always come down to where they at. They never rise to where you at. So you have to also make sure that you ignore your haters and your mental will be better. Then the last is suckers. And they're the most important. And suckers are human beings who just inherently will find the worst in everything. There's a sucker in here right now. Like, I didn't even learn nothing for the panel. What ain't you doing? It didn't even work out. And it's like no matter what happens, they always got something to say. And so you've got to know how to deal with suckers. And what you deal with suckers is like you send their energy back to them and then you walk away. It's the only way to do it. And you have to distinguish between your elevators, haters, and suckers. So suckers be like, I ain't even learned nothing from the panel. Why they here? And you're like, maybe you didn't learn nothing, I learned a whole lot, now I'm inspired, and you walk away. Because they don't know how to deal with you counteracting it and sending it back to them. So listen to your elevators. Your mental get clear. Ignore your haters. Once you learn how to ignore them, they don't affect your cipher. You know what I mean? And then always have time to discount a sucker. And for me, like, that's my strategy, and that keeps my mental clear all the time.
That's real.
Thank you for everything that everyone shared on the panel. One another good thing about the Bronx is it's the only part of New York City that's connected to the continental USA.
I'm gonna add that. Y'all heard that?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
What is that? Connected to what?
Only borough connected to the continental United States of America.
Hard. I'm gonna Google to make sure, but once I confirm, it's a wrap.
Everything else is islands.
Facts.
Everything else is islands. The Bronx is the only part that's connected to the continental USA. But my question is for everyone else who's inspiring entrepreneurs, there's a difference between working in the business and working on the business. And a lot of entrepreneurs get started out, they so focused on working in the business, they don't have time to work on the business, actually make the business grow and scale. So with all of your business in terms of where it has grown and scaled, what are some tips that you could offer everyone else?
Some great question.
To work on the business instead of working in the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that takes a lot of learning, right? Understanding how to work for the business, not inside the business, and then taking the Goldman Sachs program actually helped me with that. Right now, I have clients literally all day in my office, but I have my assistant there. And one thing is being kind to the people that want to work for you, right? The people that are actually going to be able to believe in your dream and have them in your showroom, taking on clients, right? Being able to have like these structures correctly done, having like your financials correct so that people can get paid on time, right? Because a lot of people are not going to be here working for free forever, right? So you want to be able to actually know how to hire, right? Understanding the people that connect with the culture of your company, being able to ask the right people that look like, all right, this person can actually sell whatever I'm selling or provide the service that I'm selling that's connected with the brand of the culture of the company, right? So I've learned that the type of people that want to buy suits, I know that I have to have a certain person in my showroom if you want to come and buy a $1,200 suit. I can't have a regular person come in there and just try to sell a suit to randomly. I have to be able to actually vet somebody and train them for about 3 to 6 months, understand that they need to know the ins and outs of the company in order to actually sell a suit to somebody, because that goes back to your branding, right? Also, for the years that I was working for inside of the company, it was difficult because I didn't have a life. But it was something that took me years to understand that it was worth it, because you have to know how to run the company, one. Also, you're going to bump into stuff. You're going to have headaches. You're going to have issues that you're going to bump into. I learned that, all right, I need to be able to, the client needs to have the suit arrive at a certain time, and I need to speak to my manufacturers for them to make sure everything gets aligned so that they can have their suits, their tuxedos ready for the wedding. That took me a long time to actually get that pipeline down correctly. So you have to have your operations like tight. And until you don't have your operations tight, it's going to be impossible for you to actually have somebody working for you, because then somebody will be like, nah, this doesn't work, I'm going to go somewhere else to get my suit. You know, you ever go to a franchise and then you go to another part of the franchise and it's not the same? That experience is horrible. So you got to be able to actually understand the pipeline of just correct structure and operations and being kind to you. Nobody wants to work for somebody that's evil or that's mean or that's rude or just isn't someone that's kind to their workers at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add to that, you know, it's funny. Like, I'm one of those people that, like, if I buy something from Amazon and the box comes, I normally don't look at the instructions first. I just try and see if I can figure it out. But you know, in business, you can't do that. You know, when you move your business from being ingrained in individuals to being ingrained in processes, it allows you to live outside of your business. And you know, every now and again, my uncle told me and my partner this funny story about doing business in Ghana. You know, if you want to be a boss in Ghana, you can be a boss. Like, you know, you get your own driver, you get your chef, you get everything, but your pockets will be empty. So, and what he was trying to explain to us at that point is, as a business owner, you have to know your business and be curious. You have to be nuanced in your understanding of your business to the nimblest, most simplest things. And when you know the business in that way, certain things tend to become repetitive, right? So understanding that process and documenting that process, which allows for people to be empowered, right? So for the first time ever, my team, we hosted a concert with Kirk Franklin in Maverick City in Accra, Ghana this past August. And I didn't go. And it was amazing to not have to go and be there with my team because they had all the resources and the experience to do that themselves. It did a couple of things for our business. One, it allowed me to invest confidence in them. It allowed them to sustain that confidence and to be able to know that they can do it. And it empowered them to want to do more in that space, which allowed me to free up my mental space to think about other things that I can do to grow the business. And all of that is cyclical, but it's additive and compounding on being able to grow your business. So to your point, it's really just about leaning into processes and less individuals in order to grow that business.
I want to share this too, because for me, the entrepreneurial aspect of my work, my partner is my spouse. Like my queen holds it down. So we say, how do you sort of grow a business? You got to grow with your partner, somebody that you fully trust and that's invested in you, not just monetarily, but emotionally. And then one thing I've had to learn is that you want to work with people who like you, but not people who are like you. And let me explain. Sometimes when we're dreamers, we want to surround ourselves with other dreamers. So now everybody got great ideas. Y'all all talking about all your ideas. Yeah. And if you have no doer, you be dreaming all day long and nothing gets done.
Facts.
So it's you want somebody who likes you, who likes your ideas, who likes your concept, who's invested, but you got to surround yourself with people that have skill sets that are outside of yours so that you can complement each other and grow. So for a very long time, I was talking about we want to do this thing called a writer's retreat. We got the spot upstate New York. So part of what we do is we get groups of aspiring writers and thinkers together. We come up there, they pay for the experience, they get trained, we bring folks in to speak to them, we build and so it's me and 4 people, and we're just dreaming up, what we should do is we have people kicking by the fireplace. That's gonna be fire. And we're yeah, that would be fire. Then they take a walk in the park. That's gonna be dope. And then a year later, we had all these concepts and no plan. And so we have to take a step back and say, we need people who are excellent at planning.
Executors.
Because I'm a dreamer, but I need those people. I need somebody who's excellent at being able to recruit and do media. So it's doing a self-analysis of your own skill set. And then being honest, we don't like saying what we're not good at. You know what? I'm not good at that. Mm-hmm. Or I don't like doing that. Sometimes if I don't like doing it, pay somebody who could do it. Thanks. And then we could work together and grow it. So I think find people who like you, but who are not like you. And then create an ecosystem to support your vision.
I love that.
So they gave me the little 5 minutes, so to close it out, because I know this has been dynamic, I hope people get recording, take it in. Full episodes will be on YouTube as well. But to close it out, what is either a quote or a book or both that you want to leave everybody with that was transformative for you?
So I'll give you a quote in a book. The book I read annually, and I recommend it a lot. The quote is, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. And that's been my favorite quote since junior high school. And really what I tell my team is, don't tell me why this is not possible, give me reasons why this can be possible. So just kind of looking at it as about perspective, right? Just kind of understanding perspective. Because it's always impossible until somebody does it.
Facts.
And when we were trying to do our business, everybody told us how impossible it was, how it wasn't going to work, and 8 years later we're still here and growing. So I definitely believe in optimism and putting the work behind it. And the book I would recommend is The Celestine Prophecy. The Celestine Prophecy is a great book in that it tells you how to interact with people, it tells you how to interact with yourself. And for me, it always allows me to center myself for the year. And the reason why I read it annually is because it allows me to account for all the experience I've gotten in that previous year that I just went through. So I definitely highly recommend that book.
Bro, repeat the book title?
Celestine Prophecy.
Celestine Prophecy?
Prophecy. For me, is the mantra that I have for the modern day man, and I've been using this for the past 5 years. It's the 4 agreements. Raise your hand if you heard about the 4 agreements. So the 4 agreements is always do your best, don't take things personal, don't make assumptions, and be impeccable with your word. For me, I think my life changed once I started practicing the 4 agreements. You know, being from the Bronx, there's so many things I took personal. I've gotten into a million fights because somebody was staring at me for too long, or somebody spoke to me a certain way. But being able to actually don't take things personal, do things at a high level, which is always do your best, right? Being impeccable with your word, always saying what you're gonna do and do it well. Don't gossip, don't speak behind people's back, and just always like understanding those 4 agreements has grounded me mentally. You know, and sometimes it's like a pendulum. Sometimes you out of it, and it's like, oh, let me check myself, let me get back into the 4 agreements. That's a practice that I teach my young boys that all the time, and that's a practice that I teach people who work with me at Garza Couture, understanding that although a client is mad and the client's gonna come here spazzing about something, don't take it personal. You know, oh, the client is coming late. Don't assume they probably had a lot of things going on, but these are stuff that I implement in everything of my life, whether it be business or personal, the 4 agreements.
So as a writer, somebody asked me to recommend a book, I would say Ratchetdemic, Reimagining Academic Success by Emdin. It's a phenomenal book. I know the author, he's brilliant. So if there's a book, I would say that book. And the reason why I say that book also is like, there's some times where I go back and read that book, and I'm like, yo, who wrote this? Like, I really feel like it was divinely inspired. Like, sometimes I'm like, yo, I don't even know where that came from. So I would say, like, please, if you can, pick up Ratchetdemic. It's an inspired book. And then the quote I would leave you with is so funny. I wrote this in the middle of a rap when I was in like 9th grade, and I've kept it close to my heart since then. And it's, the only man better than me is embedded in me. And every time I think about it, like whenever I go into circumstances where I don't feel less than, I'm like, even if I failed, the better version of me is still in me. I just have to do the work to allow that person to come out. And so I would say the only man better than me is embedded in me.
I love that.
One more quote. Maxine Greene, who's a crazy white lady, she died at 96 years old, and she was a philosopher. And she used to always say, I am who I am not yet. And that always speaks to me, because it says, like, the next version of you is still coming, no matter where you are. And so the only man better than me is embedded in me. I am who I am not yet.
I know we're really at close, but just one thing, it's the Bronx, we're at the Bronx Summit. I'm just wondering if, Dr. you might be able to bless us with a hot 16 before we head out.
Say less, like MC still spits, like it don't matter degree or not. What you want? You want lyrical, or you want freestyle, or you want a matter of fact, I said the quote, yo, the only man better than me is embedded in me. They bury me, but I resurrect so effortlessly. They label me, disable me, and said they saw no changes. Said Chris was from the Bronx, so he wasn't gonna make it. So while they talk about Trump and the way he portrays us, all I can say is look at the media and the way it portrays us. How that phenomenon's got so many layers. How the way I look when the camera's on affects the way that they grade us. But I'm still the greatest like Ali. Probably improperly and awkwardly, you had me locked with mediocrity, but that prophecy was pure hypocrisy. They couldn't stop me. If you lock me at a green light, I'm gonna move on red. And I flip hip-hop on his head with hip-hop ed, then dead hip-hop that was force-fed from the feds, then fed the congregation with lyrical syncopation and blow up spots like a pregnant Dalmatian. It's amazing when I'm blazing. You were Jason with a relation. I made Christopher Reeves get up and give me a standing ovation. Based in the basement, I rap high rise. We fly guys. Nah, I ain't doing that.
We can give it up for our panelists. Thank you so much, brothers, for responding to the call and being here. I'm so grateful and thankful. Good luck. Thank you again.
Shit, brother. Pleasure, man. Pleasure, brother. Yo, let's get up. I'm trying to cop something.
I got you. Out the block.
Yo, good work, brother. Good work, man. Good work, man. Good shit, man.
Thank you.
Done it again.
Yeah.
You got some heat.
Man.